here's the important point. This is regardless of whether or not you deem the exposure session successful. Ooh. This gentleness in demonstration and tenderness in tone will also serve you well when you're helping your submissive move past trauma triggers. And the key here is all about regulating exposure, all right? We want small, systematic, escalating levels of exposure to the trigger because we want to build a new positive association with the triggering act, event, or object. For instance, when Jamie was a puppy, we were wading around in the shallow part of the pool. Think of it like a tanning deck in the pool. So it's only about a foot deep and it has like a waterfall thing in the middle, but there's only like a few inches of water in this. So you can like lounge in it and you're not like totally submerged. It's like to tan, like a water deck, a tanning deck, whatever. So Jamie was walking around, little baby Jamie was just walking around with me on the water deck. And he didn't see the edge, and I had like turned and looked at something real fast, and he ended up doop doop and stepping off of it and like dunking himself in the pool. I immediately grabbed him out of the water, held him, got all the water off his face, dried him off, loved on him, made sure everything was okay. He was underwater literally for less than 2 seconds. But from that point on, he wanted nothing to do with the pool. And understandably so, little baby thing, right? So as his owner, it's my responsibility to help create a new positive association with the pool to ease that trigger and subsequent anxiety and aversion. So the next summer, I started with tiny levels of exposure and began mindfully increasing his level of exposure over the last 4 years. Now, he willingly jumps onto that water deck and will even come on my pool float with me, okay? But it took him 4 years to get there. Helping your submissive process triggers will take patience and time, all right? Know that going into it. And as you progress the levels of exposure, it's vital that you comfort, reassure, praise, and reward after each exposure. And here's the important point. This is regardless of whether or not you deem the exposure session successful. Ooh, if your submissive stayed calm and made progress and it was an overall pleasant experience, fantastic. Comfort, reassure, praise, and reward. If your submissive got activated, overwhelmed, called their safe word, and started crying, that's okay too. Comfort, reassure, praise, and reward. It's important here that your submissive understand that there's no pressure on them to respond to the exposure in a certain way. No pressure, okay? Their psychological firefighters may very well get activated in a subconscious act of self-protection. Okay, it may very well happen where your submissive gets angry, yells, cries, needs a cathartic spanking, whatever. Or the opposite might happen where they go into a numbed out, shut down state and they don't really want to talk to you. They don't really want to interact. It's all okay. It's all okay. When we're processing trauma triggers, we can't predict what the nervous system is going to do. We can't predict what the body's going to do. We can't predict what these psychological responses are going to do. We can't predict firefighters or no firefighters. So it's all okay. And your submissive needs to know that there's no pressure and it's all okay. So for you dominants, just stay present, comfort them, offer reassurance, praise them for even having the courage and the willingness to be led through it. Praise their trust in you, praise their strength, praise their vulnerability, and offer a high value reward, high value reward. Because again, the goal here is to create a new positive association with the exposure. And this can be accomplished through a high value reward, even if the exposure session itself was emotionally intense and overwhelming. And this is what I did with Jamie. Around year 2 of this exposure thing with the pool, he would allow me to pick him up and place him on the water deck. And even though he would jump right out, I would offer him a high value reward. By year 3, he would stay in the water and walk around for up to a minute before jumping out. And I would offer praise and a high value reward. Now, I can call that child from anywhere in the backyard and he will run and jump, leap onto that water deck, and even sit in the water waiting for a treat. The meaning originally attached to the trigger has completely changed for him. So he no longer really finds it triggering. But did you catch the timeline? 4 years. 4 years. Because that's our next point. You must also allow for appropriate breaks for emotional rest between exposure sessions. At first, if I was in the water and I asked Jamie to come close, I would see him get tense and go run and try to hide somewhere, right? Just my offering, just my calling him over was exposure enough. So I dropped it and waited. I didn't try again that day, and maybe even waited a day or two, another time or two in the pool before trying again. But as Jamie got more comfortable with this process, I was able to press for more exposure in shorter bouts. But the key here is to be present, know you're submissive, and trust your intuition. Read them, watch how they respond, and trust the cues that you're intuitively reading from your submissive. So, dominants, have you faced any of these challenges in your dynamic? And if so, has this series helped you out? I hope so. Comment below and let me know. And for all the companion resources you need to tackle the biggest obstacles in your power exchange dynamic, don't miss my new submissive training bundle on Patreon. This resource contains 8 exclusive downloads, including 3 brand new guides. A dominance guide to deepen devotion, a dominance guide to tackling trauma triggers, and 8 dog training techniques for effective behavior modification. And these will help you navigate submissive training, deepen devotion, and dominate some of the biggest dynamic killers. Just go over to patreon.com/LXerotica to get instant access to this new bundle. And be sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because we're starting a brand new series next week all about how to discern the motives of bratting and effectively manage these moments of feistiness.